Imagine being cast out by your tribe, betrayed by everyone you trusted. You barely escape with your life, only to fall into the deepest place in the world, the abyss. Surrounded by deadly monsters, you unleash your last magic, and suddenly, a level 9999 warrior appears before you. From that moment, the legend of your revenge against the traitors begins. Our episode begins with this super cool anime. This is the start. There was nothing, the world was pitch black emptiness inhabited only by demons and jinn. There were no humans. After that, different races appeared. The dragon race, fairies, oni, dwarves, the demon race, dark fairies, centaurs, the monster race, and finally humans. The scene shifts to a beautiful village. We see Light bidding a warm farewell to his parents, his brother Ellis and his sister Yumi. He promised them he would become a formidable, very high-ranking adventurer, that he'd support them and make them rich. The scene moves to when he was in another city, perhaps lost, but at that very moment, a member of the monster race approaches him and says, "Beat it, human, you should stay out of our way or we'll kill you." Light apologizes to him and continues on his way until he reaches the guild. Now it's his turn. A girl from the guild welcomes him and asks if this is his first day registering. He confirms, "Yes, it's my first time registering in my life. My name is Light." She starts writing his registration form and tells him, "You're rank F, the lowest rank, since this is your first time. But tell me, do you have any skills?" He replies, "Yes, of course I do." She says, "Show me then, let's see." He informs her that it's the skill of infinite gacha. "I'll explain now," he says. A star comes out of his hand, he starts spinning it, and then a card appears. It has a thorn on it, but when he pulls it out, it's unfortunately a bent thorn. He tells her, "Don't be shocked. Wait, I'll try again." He tries once, twice, a third time. He pulls out a rotten apple and moldy bread. She says to him, mockingly, "Well, your talent is clearly very good." He tells her, "Do whatever you want." And with that, she hands him the rank F card, the lowest rank. Before leaving, he asks her if there's any work he can start right away. She says, "Look, buddy, the easiest jobs are posted on that bulletin board over there." He looks at the board, but his face changes. She says, "I have a feeling you can't read." "Unfortunately, yes, I can't read. I'm illiterate," he admits. "Don't worry about it," she says. "In that case, there's gathering firewood, moving trays, and cutting grass. Farm work, basically." He says, "Anything as long as I can work and earn money." After that, Light adapts to his job. He carries stones, fills the cart, and works very hard, strenuous labor. He returns at the end of the day with a small amount of money. Despite his huge effort, the money is little. But that's how the world works. You work hard, you get a small amount of money. You do easy work, you get lots of money. A world where everything is backwards. This money is barely enough for me to afford lodging tonight, but then a great disaster happens. A group of monsters confronts him. What do you expect them to do to him? Please pause the video and write your answer in the comments. One of the monsters bumps into him and says, "Are you stupid? Watch where you're going." "I'm sorry, I really didn't notice," he replies. "No, my dear," they say. "You've dirtied my clothes. Who's gonna wash them now? Look, I'll take this money. It's barely enough for my laundry bill." And Light gets angry and says, "Please, give me back my money. That's my money and I worked hard for it all day. I won't be able to stay the night without it." But the monster hits him with a powerful blow, knocking him to the ground, and then says, "Be grateful if you can even rent a pigsty with that amount. Now get out of our sight. To let you go, we have to take this money. Come on, guys, let's take the money and go get a drink." Light was very sad and couldn't do anything. At that moment, he sees a group of elves, and one extends a hand to him, checking on him. He is startled. She says, "Don't worry, I won't hurt or harm you." Then she gives him a brotherly hug, to the point where he thinks to himself, "Did this fairy or elf get her knees muddy just to come down and hug me? Am I dreaming or what?" She says, "Oh, don't worry, you're awake. Seriously, come on, get up." Then he sees the group. They belong to a troop called the Alliance of Tribes, a group that includes the 9 races we talked about at the beginning of the episode. The wolf speaks to him saying, "I, for example, am from the monster race. My name is Garo, and that girl who extended her hand is Sasha from the dwarves. There are other people too, a dragon, a demon, the dwarf with the beard, Nano, the girl named Sion from the dark djinn, and the red man, Centaur. All we need now is a human to complete our squad. We formed this group pursuing a noble cause. We want to put an end to racial discrimination and create a fair world for everyone." They continue their conversation, saying, "We need someone like you to join us." Light is very happy with this beautiful idea. After that, the scene shifts to Light with the group of monsters. The dragon quickly rescues him, another monster attacks him, but another girl, yes, Sasha, saves him. She says, "What's the matter, buddy? I can't take my eyes off you for a minute. We're in the abyss, the darkest place on earth. You'll die instantly if anything hits you here. I'll protect you. Don't worry." But the rest of the squad gathers and teases her, saying Sasha can't stop herself from focusing on Light. All the blood is rushing to her cheeks. Look how red her face is. She says, "That's not true. I just don't want anyone in the squad to be lost." The dragon speaks to him and says, "It's okay. Isn't it enough that you can do one thing? It's enough that you'll do something for us and cook for the squad. That's all we want. Now let's get going. We have a long way ahead of us." They continue on their way and then suddenly stop at a place to rest. Light goes to prepare tea for them. One of them comes to him and says, "Light, wait, I'll bring the tea right away." The monster informs him that won't be necessary. You will be exiled from this squad now. But why? What did I do? Light asks. That's just the way it is. You will be exiled from the squad. You're not coming with us, don't you hear? You've become useless to us now. You don't have the abilities we do, and you'll hold us back. Sasha, the girl who is kind to him, says, "This boy is so stupid, he makes me feel sad." Everyone agrees to get rid of him and exile him from the squad. Everyone is mocking him. "You must be kidding. Tell me you're kidding," he pleads. They reply, "Is this the time to joke with a despicable and stupid human like you? But I'm not stupid. You were very kind to me just a little while ago. What happened now?" Garo says to him, "Buddy, we were pretending and deceiving you, you foolish idiot. Unfortunately, you're not useful for anything. When we saw your talent, we thought this kid would benefit us, but unfortunately, it's useless. Look, we've talked to you a lot. Now it's time for the end. You won't speak much anymore." The dragon orders Garo to eliminate him immediately. This means they will banish him from existence, and Garo will take care of it. Garo sharpens his very strong, gleaming claws and tries to shred his face, which is now smeared with blood. Light is completely shocked, standing in front of these monsters, terrified. He runs quickly, but they say to him, "Run all you want, you'll only end up as ground meat for some monsters in the abyss." Then Sasha, the girl who had befriended him from the beginning and hugged him, shoots an arrow into his leg. And this, my friends, teaches us never to trust anyone, no matter the circumstances. The arrow pierces his leg and he falls to the ground, crying and screaming from the intense pain. Garo then hits him with a very powerful blow that nearly knocks the breath out of him and begins kicking him. The dragon tells Garo, "That's enough. Finish him off with one strike." Light tries to move and tries to resist death. He clings to life even though he knows he's going to die inevitably. And indeed, my friends, something strange happens, and an instantaneous teleportation circle activates. Garo tries to strike him quickly before he can escape, but the circle activates swiftly, and he teleports to another place, perhaps a place even harsher than where he was. Light could barely believe he was still alive. The instant teleportation trap activated at the last moment, sending him to another part of this labyrinth. He began to cry, remembering his father, mother, and siblings. He missed them all. He thought back to the group of monsters who invited him to their team, how well they treated him and how much kindness they showed. I respected them, believed in them, and was so happy about it, and yet, it was all just a lie. They deceived me into joining an expedition into the labyrinth, then tried to kill me, treating me like trash with huge, mocking grins on their faces, talking about some nonsense. I don't even know what maestro they were talking about. I'll kill them all. I will have my revenge. They hurt me so much. They will all pay. I will not die here. I swear I will rip out their guts. Suddenly, huge rocky monsters appear. They are level 1000. Light is terrified, as these are the kind of monsters you only hear about in folktales. He realizes he has truly been sent to the deepest part of the abyss in this labyrinth. Despite the monsters advancing and preparing to attack, he is determined to fight and not surrender. He frantically searches for a solution to fight this thing and tries to activate his gacha repeatedly, but it doesn't respond. He insists on activating it just to escape those villains. Suddenly, the gacha activates, emitting a brilliant light. Many magical gates open from it, instantly eliminating the monsters on the spot. A voice says, "I will not allow anyone to harm my master, no matter the cost." Then, a beautiful girl bows to her master, Light. She begins to heal his wounds and apologizes, saying she could not bear to see your handsome face wounded this way, my lord. I have taken it upon myself to be your caretaker, my lord. Light is surprised that he no longer feels any pain. He stands up, the agony completely gone, and can barely believe it. The girl introduces herself and he tells her his name is Light. She replies, "Master Light, Lord of Light." That name sounds grand and celestial to the ear. According to the maid's code of honor, I am bound by duty to my master Light, Lord of Light. I shall live in your service, devoted until death, and I pledge my absolute loyalty to you. Light is completely astonished and asks, "Where exactly did you come from?" She informs him that her level is 9,999, and she is known as May, the ever-searching maid. I am an extremely rare card that emerged from your limited Master Light gacha. I will remain bound to you, even after death. Light is highly perplexed. But my unlimited gacha is worthless. There's no way someone as magnificent as you could come out of it, miss. The maid asks him to call her May, without any titles. Light does so, which makes her very happy. She then asks him for another favor. To use my ability, my innate skill is appraisal. Specifically, it is impossible for your gift to be worthless, my lord. Please allow me to appraise it. Light gives her permission. May performs the appraisal and can barely believe it. She explains that her master's abilities are hidden beneath a thick layer of concealment. It's impossible for anyone who is not at my level to see the details. She then tells him, "Your special power is not worthless at all. Your gacha has an infinite number of pathways. The gift you receive has probabilities and card rarities that vary based on the density of surrounding mana. Mana is something that flows everywhere throughout the world. However, its density is at its lowest on the surface. This means that the chance of an extremely rare card like me appearing is close to zero, but mana is abundant here in the depths of this labyrinth. This means you have much better chances of obtaining a rare card. You are very brave, my lord, to have traveled all the way down to the bottom of this labyrinth alone. However, encountering any monster could be fatal given your current statistics. But fear not. I shall always be with you from now on. Light cuts her off, saying, "You are wrong. I never intended to face the abyss alone." He starts crying, remembering being with the treacherous team. They all betrayed me. I was cut and shot with arrows. I was nearly killed by people I thought were my friends. They said my gift was bad and called me a pathetic human. All I wanted was to provide for my family. How could they treat me this way just because I'm human? The pain was unbearable. It hurt so much. And all that talk about ending discrimination and creating a normal world, they just wanted to fool me. It's insane. They were so kind one moment, but then they turned into evil murderers. They will all pay the price. I won't rest until they get what they deserve. Tears stream from his eyes. He is consumed by rage. May embraces him and he calms down. The maid apologizes for everything that happened and reassures him. With my power available to you at any time, I shall make them regret the day they were born. I will inflict a severe punishment upon them. It is an easy matter for me. Please, issue the command and I will do everything you ask. I will hunt down those deceitful heathens with all speed and bring their heads to you on spears, my lord. Light asks her to wait and show them mercy, but May, knowing her master's kind heart, tells him, "They do not deserve mercy, my lord." Light replies, "I put my trust in them and they deceived me, and I nearly died after being severely beaten and dragged to this hell. But this is only because I was weak. So, I need to become stronger. Perhaps it's impossible for a human like me, but I want to take my revenge with my own hands, and I will make them all suffer. Do you think that is a pipe dream, May?" She bows to him and grants her master this wish. "If personal revenge is what you seek, my lord, it is my honor to assist you in achieving it. I believe in your potential more than anything else, my lord." Light is very happy with her words. He begins to activate his gacha again in this mana-filled location to establish a kingdom capable of paving the way for his revenge. The black depths were flooded with bright light, and the first page in his great tale of revenge had begun. Wait for us in the next episode, a very exciting episode of this anime. What will Light do to those traitors and deceivers? Before you leave this video, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all that is new. 3 years went by in this place, and Light had created a kingdom of his own in this abyss. Every maid were a fangirl of Light, and that just irritated me so much. But Light told to mind them and goes around his land on a survey. There were many stores and people living here, and everyone respects Light. He's the ruler here, and he takes care of them like their safety and their necessities. After that survey, he asked about others, and May said Aoyuki is currently creating a map of the abyss and the surface, and she reported nothing unusual. And then comes the mage, Lady Ellie, who's been developing new magic for Light's plan, and it was also in good flow. She's dumb, and she's doing the patrol duty of the castle right now. With that, he arrived to meet Jack, another powerful summon, and he gets too casual with Light. But Light never minds, because he saw Jack as an older brother. In this 3 years, Jack has trained Light in close quarters and turned him into a pure monster. By the way, Nozuna was really doing her job and met the 4 maids on the way. She was happy to carry out Light's work, and maids started praising her for such honest work. Nozuna is easily manipulated, so the maids asked for a favor. Then she went to a place that was off limits to other maids, and she found May in that place. May was cleaning up Light's room, but Nuna went inside and saw the bedsheet was a mess. And by the looks of it, she was sniffing it, but Nozuna is too pure, or rather too naive, to understand this sort of things. That's why May came up with some stupid reason and she believed her words. But then she remembers the message those 4 maids sent. It says, "Stop monopolizing Master Light's room, because they also want equal rights, you tyrant May." But the last part was hard for Nozuna to understand. But May got it fully. It was the curse words, and May decided to punish them. But first she gives a few penny to Nuna to send her away like a kid. She quickly went to snack stores to buy some dorayaki and milk. But on the way, she found Ayuki. Ayuki was supposed to be on the surface, but she did already. Aoyuki had the habit of mimicking a cat, so it's hard to converse with her sometimes. But when Nozuna said she could depend on her, she instantly pulled out her report to show she can do anything on her own. With that, Nozuna continued her duties and came to the throne room. There she got all clingy with Light's throne, but in emotional flow, she accidentally broke the side wing of his throne, so she swiftly ran off after putting it back. Meanwhile, Light went to bath with Jack after a tiring session of fighting, which implies Light is now completely ready to return to the surface to exact his revenge. After that, May called in the 4 who sent that complaint through Nozuna, and she was calm. Or rather, she was trying to stay calm, but the 4 said they just wanted to lighten her workload in their own way. But May remembers the last part of their complaint. It wasn't friendly at all, and worse, they sent it through Nozuna. Now they all started to blame each other, but in any case, May assigned them to clean the whole hallway till the throne room with hand. Besides, she has to go to the surface soon, so she told them to work in her absence. In the meantime, Nozuna meets with Ellie, and her work was proceeding smoothly, so she had some spare time on hand. Ellie always picks on Nozuna, so she tries to prove how smart she is, but Nozuna knew she knows nothing about surroundings, and that caused a scene. And then Ellie said how she wants to invite Light to her room for dinner. Nozuna is too pure that she doesn't understand at all. She literally thought Ellie meant dinner only. So after that, Nazuna tried to show she also has an upper hand. Ellie is a mage, so she's not good in close combat, and asked to rely on her. Even Ellie can't be mad on such a pure lady. And that's how she goes away to resume her patrol duty, but somewhere in the castle, Four Eyes were still frustrated how Mei was hogging Light all for herself. They wanted to get fair treatment, but Mei is way stronger than them. They also want to go to Light's room and go through all of his belongings in bed as well, but one of them was weird with her taste because she wanted to use the same utensils as Light. The other three found it creepy, but they also want to do the same. But their biggest obstacles is Mei. After all, she's the summon Light pulled, so they can't do much. But it reminds them that the second gacha pull took 3 months, which means Mei was all alone with Light in this dungeon. Their fantasy ran wild, and Mei heard all of their nonsense from outside, even the part where they were praying for her death. So, one by one, everyone took a U-turn and said they're always loyal to her, to sugarcoat her. But still, Mei said that 3 months when they were alone, Light was always working hard. So they didn't do anything they were thinking about, but besides that, Mei added another punishment to this for a clean throne room as well. So when they were in the throne room, cleaning it up, the part Nazuna broke fell down and they thought it was their mistake. But the real culprit was relaxing at night in her room, but the next day it was time for them to head back on the surface, and watching Light being chummy with Aoki Ali also tried to hit on him, but a hellhound appears there, and the trauma from 3 years ago still shakes up Light, watching that girls got so ticked that they decided to wipe out the entire hellhound breed. But Light calms him down since he's okay, and furthermore it's time to put their plan into motion, and that's how the hunt for revenge starts. And right there, our episode ends. But stay tuned to watch more of its episode, and for that, make sure you subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon. Rio achieves his dream in a fantasy world, wielding water magic, but is forced to fight for survival. Thanks to eternal youth, he becomes the strongest water mage. A fateful encounter turns his life upside down, beginning a unique adventure. Stay tuned to the end to know the full story. Our episode today of this new anime begins when the boy named Rio wakes up from his sleep. He looks left and right and uses a wonderful water power from his hand. It seems he's training his superhuman abilities. The scene then shifts to a world full of shadows and dimness. Rio says, "Where am I? What is this place?" Then a man meets him and says, "Are you Rio? I'm so glad you're well. It's been a long time since I had a visitor." He then says, "Unfortunately, it seems you passed away after a very difficult accident." Rio replies, "Yes, I remember that." Important note, this does not reflect reality in any way. What happens after death are unseen matters known only to God. Yes, we know that after death there is resurrection, and then either paradise or hell. After that, the man disappears, and Rio returns to normal life trying to adapt to his current situation. He was living in the Rondo forest in a large house with enough food for 2 months. He finds that the house is a storage facility for food, which is great. The house is fully equipped to prevent monsters from approaching its immediate vicinity, acting like a defensive barrier. Rio says, "What is this encyclopedia? But I can read it even though I've never seen this language before. And this is an encyclopedia of plants." He then uses his power again, and water flows. He says, "I think, if I can imagine what I'm doing, there's no need to speak it. But I've always found incantations to be fascinating." He uses his power and fills the water tank. This is great too. He also uses his power and tries to light the piece of wood, but he can't. He falls asleep, exhausted. Then he looks at the sun and says, "It's truly beautiful, but I need to figure out how to make ice. How I wish I could cast spells like an ice spear. Ultimately, I need to apply pressure while removing its heat. I need to visualize the H2O molecules at the center of the water. If I can link the oxygen atom to the adjacent molecule, the idea will succeed." And indeed, it succeeded, all thanks to hydrogen bonds. Now, if I can make it take the shape I want, that would be wonderful. After that, he takes a hot bath and then sleeps. In the morning, he eats dried food and says, "It's best to start training if I want a quiet and safe life." He then performs water training, aiming directly at a tree. He uses it again, but unfortunately fails. Then he uses a water gun and succeeds. He tries repeatedly, and the operation is completely successful. In the morning, he trains, but he does something new and transforms water into ice. After that, Rio uses his power to launch an ice spear. He discovers that launching it isn't as easy as firing a simple water stream, given the difficulty of its creation and its limited range. He has doubts about its practical applications in battles, but for now, training is the path to mastery. Rio continues to experiment with his magic until sunset. He feels like he's about to lose consciousness as this magic drains his energy. He returns home to find it dark, as he can't start a fire. Rio falls asleep and wakes up in the morning, deciding to venture outside the barrier. While exploring, he finds a quartz stone, which he was sure he'd find on the riverbank. Now he can start fires, even after sunset. All he needs to do is collect some disinfectant herbs, and today's adventure will be a success. As he sits to gather the herbs, a wild boar monster suddenly appears. The boar tries to attack him, and Rio is terrified, but he gathers his strength to use magic. He successfully uses Ice Path followed by Ice Spear, and at that moment, he manages to kill the boar. That night, he returns home to look up small wild boars in his books. He finds them classified under the lowest ranks and realizes that this monster encyclopedia is a beginner's version. However, it mentions that the last 2 pages are a special edition. When he opens the last 2 pages, they talk about dragons, each capable of destroying an entire city with ease. A warning is written. When they see these dragons, they should flee quickly. The next morning, Rio goes to the garden to pick fruits. As he eats them, he finds them delicious. At that moment, a powerful bird attacks him. Rio becomes very tense due to the bird's strength. It's a killer hawk, capable of using wind blades, a hidden type of offensive wind magic. Its primary weapon, however, is its charges, while brandishing its sharp talons and beak. The bird indeed tries to strike Rio, who runs away, but he's certain he won't be able to escape. He decides to confront it. When the bird tries to attack again, Rio strikes its eye with his spear and the bird flies away to a distant place. Rio lies on the ground, blaming himself, realizing that a peaceful life is harder than he expected. When night falls, Rio tries to return home but loses his way because of his fight with the hawk. He continues to wander and finds a man with a horse, but the man has a body and no head, so Rio ignores him. The next morning, Rio wanders through the forest and a cobra appears before him. He easily kills it and then goes fishing. Rio experiments with his magic and strength, and it becomes clear he's very powerful. He shatters a rock, exclaiming, "If I use magic to increase the hardness of ice, it might be able to act as an abrasive material. Perhaps I'm finally mastering the use of magic." He then wonders, the beginner's version of the monster encyclopedia didn't mention anything about the Dullahan. Is it not considered a monster, or is it too advanced to be in the beginner's version? Suddenly, a creature appears and attacks him, but Rio parries all its blows and strikes it. Rio falls, saying, "I don't think I have a chance against it yet. But there's a reason I come here every night. It seems like it's telling me it will train me until I reach the required level." Rio is then amazed when he sees this man with a water sword. The man gives it to Rio and then leaves. The next day, the hawk reappears. Rio says, "Is that the same killer hawk? But its color wasn't so dark before." Rio uses his power and fights the monster, striking it many times. He then uses Ice Wall and Ice Spear, but the hawk evades and shrugs off everything. Rio is astonished and says, "Could it be some kind of dispelling magic? That's a dangerous ability it developed." Rio strikes it many more times and it falls to the ground. Rio approaches it. "I hit its eye. Even if we both did our best and I lost, it would still be hard to accept. But at least our encounter helped me progress. I wanted to become stronger in anticipation of your return. And out of respect for the pride you showed here, I will finish you." Rio takes the sword, and the hawk falls dead. Afterward, a dragon appears and speaks to Rio. "It's been a long time since I used telepathy. I wasn't sure if it still worked. I'd hoped to ask you something. Did you encounter a bird here that evolved from a killer hawk?" Rio replies, "Yes, I did. Was it one of your followers? If so, I must apologize." The dragon says, "Then you defeated it? Truly amazing work. I can't help but notice you carry a rare weapon at your waist." The dragon sees the sword and is astonished, then says, "That's the Fairy King's sword. If he gave it to you, you must have done something to earn his approval." Ryu says, "But with your permission, I was hoping to ask you some questions as well." The dragon replies, "You must excuse me, but I am being summoned. I enjoyed our conversation." Ryu says, "I appreciate everything you've told me." The dragon bids him farewell, saying, "I hope we meet again." Rio then muses, "I never expected I'd talk to a dragon. Anything can happen in a fantasy world. It seems I overlooked something." Then, an old man says, "No one has ever possessed a hidden advantage like that girl I first sent to another world. That was 10,000 years ago. In Rio's case, his hidden advantage is eternal youth." This concludes today's episode of this anime. Look forward to the next episodes. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell icon to receive all new updates. Our episode today begins with Rio, who headed towards the sea craving salty, grilled seafood. However, he found a horrific sight, a ship completely wrecked and a lifeless person beside it. Suddenly, he noticed another person on the ground, still alive. Rio rescued him and took him to his home. After a while, this person woke up to find himself in a strange place. He went outside and met Rio. The young man was surprised by Rio's clothes, but he told himself, "That shouldn't be the first thing I tell him." He then introduced himself, saying his name was Abel, and he was very grateful to Rio for saving him. Rio replied, "It's nothing. All I did was bring you to my home, but you were the only one left there. I'm sorry about the others." Abel told him, "Don't worry, they were smugglers." Abel's stomach began to rumble from extreme hunger, so Rio took him to eat together. Abel commented that Rio didn't have any clothes. Rio explained that he couldn't sew any clothes because there were no fabrics or threads, and not many people here, let alone a town. Abel thought to himself, "Of course, he can't provide necessities if he doesn't have money. Did I just insult the man to whom I owe my life?" He then thanked him for the delicious food. Rio then generated water using his magic, which greatly astonished Abel. This great water magic, and magic in general, is only mastered by about half the population, even in the central provinces, and I don't master it. But I have a request. I want to confirm something. Would you please take me to the coast? They then headed towards the coast, walking through the forest. Abel wanted to lead the way, but Rio prevented him, fearing for his safety. However, Abel insisted, and Rio agreed. They then reached the coast and noticed that all the bodies had disappeared. Abel said, "This means if you hadn't saved me, Rio, I would most likely have met the same fate." Abel then boarded the ship and checked for something. Unfortunately, he didn't find what he was looking for. "I must meet my friends. Lawntown would be a good start, but it seems I've drifted far to the south," Rio said. "I think reaching that town requires a long journey to the north." Abel suggested that Rio accompany him on his journey. "I need your help, Rio, because frankly, I have no idea where I am or how to get to Lawntown." Rio was happy and agreed to go with him on his journey, but he would need to prepare for it, so he suggested they leave tomorrow. Abel was very happy with his agreement. When night fell, Rio went to bid someone farewell because he only appeared at such a time. "I want to tell him I'll be away for a while." Abel was surprised, because Rio had told him before that no one lived here, but he believed Rio had gone to visit someone dear to him. Abel thought to himself that perhaps Rio had gone to visit a loved one. There was no guarantee he'd always lived there alone, and it wasn't his business to pry. Afterwards, Rio went to meet the mysterious man, informing him that he'd be away from Rondo Forest for a while, starting tomorrow. He expressed immense gratitude for everything the man had provided, stating that he'd managed to stay alive thanks to him. Today was their last bout, so he would fight harder than usual. Indeed, they had an intense spar, with Rio landing many blows, but the man managed to block every single one. After the spar, the mysterious man gave Rio an outfit, which delighted Rio greatly. He put it on and thanked the man for everything he did. The next morning, Rio met Abel and they set off on their journey. As they walked, they sensed a monster about to attack. Abel told Rio to stay back and observe what he did. Abel ran towards the monster and sliced it in half with his sword. Rio was impressed by his skills. Abel explained that his strength resembled techniques used by swordsmen and others who fight with weapons. They continued on their way and heard a sound coming from the river. They found that it was lizards in the river. Abel told Rio that they were strong opponents in the swamp and that they should take a different route than through the forest. As they moved, Rio felt the lizards were pursuing them, so they had to fight and defend themselves. Rio decided to use his magic in the fight because of their large numbers. Indeed, Rio used one of his spells to kill these lizards. Abel was amazed by this power and asked him about the type of spell and where he learned it. Rio told him that he wasn't sure if it was Ice Lance or Water Spell. Abel told him, "You made 4 spears appear at once. Don't spells usually cast a single shot? That's what the wind magician I know says." Rio replied, "Perhaps it's different for wind magic, but this is quite normal for water magic." Abel said, "That seems strange, but never mind, let's keep going." Rio then used his power and gave Abel a cup of water, telling him, "We should drink regularly as we walk." Abel asked him, "Wasn't the incantation you used to create water last time, 'Let water be born'?" Rio didn't answer him, changed the subject, and they left. On their way, Abel gave Rio a piece of money. Rio was astonished, saying, "I've never seen money before." Abel informed him, "This is a bronze florin, used in the Kingdom of Nightly, where Lon is located. In the central provinces, each region mints its own currency, but they all use the same denominations. The Kingdom of Nightly is part of these central provinces and one of 3 major nations. The other 2 are the Debohi Empire and the Handaleo Federation." After that, they saw many stones attacking them, but they used their magic to destroy them. Then Abel said to Rio, "This is very bad. We've entered a stone golem nest. I always thought golems were more human-like with arms and legs. I'll try to deal with the nearby ones. You stay put." Abel then attacked a stone and broke it, but it regenerated again. Rio said, "There's an attack I'd like to try. Do you mind if I try it?" Abel agreed and Rio used his power, activating a 10-layered ice wall, finally destroying all the stones. Abel was amazed and asked him what that was. Rio replied, "I took care of 2 golems. I'll use the same spell on the rest." Afterwards, they found the last stone. Rio said it was no longer moving and might absorb energy from the ground. After it was overthrown, it couldn't move anymore. Then Abel told him that this was a magic stone, a large one at that, and its color was clearly shiny. "It seems this thing has defeated any monster it encountered for years," Rio told him. "I think this is our spoils of war. I want to collect them from the rest of the stone golems too." After that, they heard a strange sound. They noticed a giant hippopotamus. Abel said, "I've never seen one up close like this before, but I think it's a behemoth." Then they noticed wyvern birds in the sky. Rio said, "It looks like we're going to witness a monster battle from the front row. However, it's clear the advantage isn't with the behemoth. I don't think little Behi will be easily defeated." The birds attacked the hippopotamus, but the hippopotamus roared at them, killing them all. Rio said, "I'm sure that was a D-spell. I was expecting the second round to be between little Behi and Abel." Abel replied, "That was a D-spell. I've heard of traps in dungeons that have this effect." He added, "The only dungeon in the central provinces is in Lon, the town we're going to." Rio was surprised, saying, "You were hiding this secret from me?" Abel replied, "That wasn't my intention. I didn't know you were interested in dungeons." Then he asked him if he knew about dwarves and elves. He explained that dwarves are skilled craftsmen and fierce fighters, and there's a group of them in Lon. As for elves, he thought there was only one in Lon, as most of them build settlements in forests and don't leave them. The next day they continued their journey. Rio said that once they crossed these mountains, they would be closer to human lands. Rio then remembered his conversation with the dragon when it said, "This land is surrounded by the sea to the east, west, and south." To its north is a mountain range that separates it from the neighboring continent, so it's unlikely you'll encounter any humans coming south from their lands in the north. Suddenly, a hideous hawk appeared before them. Rio and Abel were very scared. Then, Abel threw it some food, which it took and left. Abel said, "Nevertheless, that thing left an unforgettable impression. We wouldn't have come out alive if we'd fought it. Humans weren't created to fight monsters. No encounters with behemoths and drowned have been reported for centuries. Something is wrong with this place," Rio told him. "That's a harsh expression. Perhaps humans aren't putting in enough effort. I think the wyverns that fought little Bahi came from the north." They saw the bird again. Abel said, "Wyverns are much stronger. If the two of us were to face them, it would take 20 adventurers, and even then there would be casualties." Rio replied, "But I have a feeling we'll face quite a few. We might not be able to avoid fighting." Rio asked, "Wouldn't it be easier to fight them if they were preoccupied on the ground?" Rio replied that this would certainly be better since he could reach them with his sword. When Rio heard this, he rushed towards it. Abel tried to stop him but couldn't. Then Rio used his ice spears that penetrate everything to stab his enemies. Indeed, the ice spears landed on the monsters, killing some of them, while Abel tried to kill the others, but Rio beat him to it, killing them with his ice spears. After that, they took the crystals that came out of the monsters' bodies. Rio talked to Abel and asked him if he preferred a decisive battle where his heart raced or what. Abel replied that he didn't want that, but in reality this was perfect and they should continue the plan. Before they did anything, a group of wyvern monsters approached them. They decided to eliminate them because they would block their path, so it made no difference whether they fought them now or later, as they would continue to eliminate them on their way. Thus ends today's episode. If you liked the video, please click like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all new updates. The episode begins with Rio and Abel continue their journey while discussing whether they should ever risk running into wyverns again. While Rio doesn't mind fighting these monstrous beasts, Abel doesn't want to face such danger. Still, he is glad that Rio did fight the wyverns earlier, as they now have a whole bag of magic stones that they can trade for a lot of money. Anyway, the two of them reach an area far north and notice a thin road in the distance, which indicates that they will find a town if they follow the road. Abel looks around, and since the road leads to what looks like frickin' Mount Everest to the east, he thinks they should start walking west instead. Abel seems to recognize the icy mountains, but he doesn't tell Rio about it and only informs him that if they follow the path east, they will reach a town named Coyote. Rio is glad to hear this news and expresses how much he's been wanting to sleep in a bed recently. Abel is surprised to hear that Rio is a relaxer type guy, as he's thought of Rio as a caveman who only wants to fight monsters. In any case, Abel starts suggesting to Rio what he should do once they reach Kayad, telling him about the local cuisine, which according to him is extremely tasty. It doesn't take the two friends too much time to reach the town, and once they do, they enter a local restaurant for food, where Abel informs Rio about adventurer guilds, advising him to register as an adventurer since he's quite strong. According to Abel, the guild card also acts as an identity card, and with it, Rio will get permission to enter anywhere in this nation for free. Rio does like the idea, since this time when they entered the town, Abel had to pay the guards a silver coin for him at the gate so he could enter. Abel also tells Rio another perk of joining the Adventurers Guild, which is that he can trade magic stones and monster loot, but also mentions that he would have to be an alchemist to make use of such items. Rio, a chemistry lover, is highly interested in alchemy, so he starts considering becoming an adventurer. The waitress serves them curry and rice, and Rio is honestly surprised that this world too has the generic food items from his previous world. He whispers to himself how in generic EI anime, the protagonist has to go through a lot before they can recreate food from their home world, and since food like curry already exists here in the world of Fi, Rio considers this a total blessing. In any case, he digs in and becomes a bro mukbanger, asking for seconds and thirds. The next morning, he once again mentions how much he loved the curry, making Abel wonder if this caveman never ate decent food before. Since Abel didn't mention anything about the town having curry, Rio jokes that Abel is perhaps keeping more juicy secrets from him, which catches Abel off guard, hinting that he is perhaps keeping some secret from Rio. The two begin their journey again through meadows and farmlands and soon find themselves on the outskirts of their destination, the town of Lon. As they reach the entrance gate of the town, the gate guard recognizes Abel and is shocked to see him because there's been news of him going missing. Abel doesn't have the time to explain the situation, but just tells the guard that the man here with him saved his life. The guard thanks Rio for saving Abel and very enthusiastically shakes Rio's hand. Since Rio hasn't registered as an adventurer yet, he needs to pay an entry fee, and Abel once again does it for him, paying the guard a silver coin as the fee. The guard once again welcomes Abel back to town and asks him what he plans to do now. As they converse, Rio realizes that Abel must be pretty famous and quite friendly with everyone here. Anyway, Abel and Rio make their way to the Adventurers Guild first, and on their way, Abel tells Rio that normally when a person registers, their rank starts from rank F. But, since Abel is a veteran adventurer, he thinks he can vouch for Rio's skill, and with that reference, Rio can start from E or even D. The regular ranking rules apply in this world as well, which means that the higher a person's rank is, the more difficult the quest they can take. Abel doesn't think Rio will ever need to do any quest, as he believes Rio will be stacked with money once he sells all of the magic stones they have in their possession. They have so much that selling all of them at once might crash the market, so Abel wants to consult with the guild master Aster first, deciding to have him figure out what to do. They enter the guild, and immediately everyone in there is shocked and overjoyed to see that their friend Abel is alive and well. As dozens of people surround Abel, Rio smiles as he's never expected to have made such a popular friend. He goes outside, not wanting to get in anyone's way, and decides to take a stroll when he runs into an elf girl who takes interest in his outfit. Recognizing it as the Fairy King's outfit, Rio is confused because he has no idea who the Fairy King is, and unfortunately the elf girl claims she's in a hurry, so she leaves without explaining, hoping they will meet again soon. Abel comes out looking for Rio and brings him inside, introducing him to everyone as the man who saved his life. He then pushes Rio forward, and everyone expresses how happy and grateful they are to him. After everyone goes back to their own business, Abel brings Rio to the guild receptionist for the registration process and endorses Rio, asking the receptionist to register him as a D-rank adventurer. The receptionist can't believe a man like Abel, who is from the Crimson Sword Party, is personally endorsing someone. She reveals that this is the first time anyone from this party is doing such a thing, and that means Rio must be someone really special. The receptionist approves it, but states that there's still a physical assessment process that Rio must go through too. Speaking of which, Abel wants to speak with the guildmaster, and so the receptionist brings them to the meeting room, where Hugh the guildmaster barges in upon hearing Abel has returned. The fact that they could pass through that mountain and return alive is shocking, even for Hugh, who is the guildmaster. Abel asks Hugh if that fact is enough for him to rank Rio up, since he knows that there's no way a non-skilled person can pull that off. Hugh admits that he is right and accepts that he will rank Rio up. Before they could finish their conversation, a team barges into the room. The team contains members of Abel's party, Lynn, Warren, and Rhea. When Lynn sees Abel and confirms that he is alive, she falls on her knees. She cannot imagine that she would see him again. He stands up and goes to meet them and apologizes for making them disturbed. He admits that he would have died if Rio hadn't saved him. So, Rio is who they should be appreciating. Hugh knows that the party has a lot of catching up to do, so he excuses them and asks the guild clerk, Nena, to prepare the materials needed for registration, while he lets the party use the room for their catching up. Rio attempts to leave with Hugh, but Abel calls him back, telling him they have something to do together, and instructing him to wait by the guild after his registration. As Rio walks away, Hugh reads through his mind and sees he is confused as to how popular Abel is. He explains that Abel's party, the Crimson Sword, is the strongest party in the village, and everyone felt Abel's absence. Rio asks if he will be registering in Dank, and Hugh says yes. He admits that he knows Abel. Abel is strong. However, he also knows that Abel wouldn't successfully conquer those monsters if he didn't have a good support system. So he is very sure that Rio is very good too, meaning he has no problem with registering him in the Dank. He takes him into another office, and Nena comes there with the materials. He leaves Nena to deal with the registration while he does the paperwork involved in the guild. Nena introduces herself and brings a book. She asks important questions like Rio's skills and level, and also asks if he had been to a dungeon before. When he says no, she tells him they have dungeoning classes every month and asks if he wants to sign up. He decides to sign up, and she tells him about their next class by 9 in a few days. He is shocked that there is time there, and she tells him there is a clock in the middle of the city. Since he has no place to stay, she tells him he could stay at the guild's lodge for 300 days after his registration. After her paperwork is done, she brings his card and asks him to put his palm on a system. The system prints on his card, and the process finishes. They leave the room, and Hugh is glad that Abel is back. He complains about how the entire city had been a mess due to Abel's absence. Rio returns to Abel, who takes him around. Abel tells him they are going to get the money for the stones they have sold, and he also intends to buy clothes and a staff for Rio. Rio appreciates his kind gesture, but wonders why Abel wants to buy him a staff. Abel says he is fine without it. Also, that isn't that much of a concern since he always has a sword with him. Abel doesn't even think he has a sword, but he shows Abel the sword by his side. Abel sees it as just a knife because it is very small. He says that it is a sword and he can use it. His entire life is a shock to Abel, and he also has things he is confused about. He needs to ask Abel questions. After shopping in a series of questions, he finds out that that world also has 24 hours in a day, 7 days. Make a week, and there are 30 days in a month, just like Earth. With the curry he ate too, he can guess that someone from Earth had reincarnated there and changed the world. Abel comes to meet him, and he appreciates Abel for the things he bought. Abel informs him that there is somewhere else they have to get to, and as the guest of honor, he can't refuse. Abel takes him to his welcome party, and they have fun and drink throughout the night. The following morning, he is tired. He takes a walk to his lodge with Na, who admits that he must have had a swell evening. She talks about how Ra, Abel's supposed brother, didn't leave Rio's side at all because he was so appreciative of what Rio had done for them. That wasn't really what stressed Rio. He is stressed because he drank a lot the night before. They eventually arrive at the lodge, and Nena opens the door. The room has 2 people already, and Ne introduces Rio as their last roommate. The two roommates, Niels and Atto, introduce themselves, and No reminds Rio of his class the next day before taking her leave. After she leaves, Niels talks about how pretty she is. Otto isn't interested in Niels' delusions, so he goes to speak with Rio instead. They exchange pleasantries and plan that they will be casual throughout their stay. Na knocks again and brings another roommate, Ayan. She looks young and they ask for her age. She reveals she is 16 but her parents just died, so she had decided to earn a living by adventuring. Na asks them to welcome her and tells Rio to come for the class with her the next day. Meanwhile, Abel tells his party what he had witnessed with Rio. How Rio had used magic without a staff. How he used ice to kill wyverns and other things he did. One of the party members, Lynn, cannot believe what Abel is saying. She argues with facts that it could never be true because magic uses proximity and distance, but Abel insists that is exactly what he had seen. He even talks about how Rio had used ice blocks to kill weavers, which Lynn thinks is impossible. Another party member, Ria, comments that there is only one legend that was that strong, and it was the Inferno Magician. They think of all they have heard about the Inferno Magician as just rumors, since no one witnessed it. Another concern is that if Rio is that strong, then he could turn against them or support the Empire. But Abel reassures them that Rio can't support the Empire because Rio hates the name of Doohy Empire. On the other hand, Rio laughs and jokes with his new roommates as he considers how much his life has changed. Thus ends today's episode. If you liked the video, please click like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. The episode begins with Rio and Amen complete their crash course on dungeon exploration for dummies, and their teacher tells them that they are going to enter the first level of a dungeon in the afternoon. Amen is visibly tense about going into a dungeon, but Rio tells him to chill out because if he gets worked up now, he will be tired by the time they reach the dungeon. The instructor then asks if anyone has any questions, and Rio asks him if there is a way to instantly travel to the floors they have cleared before. The instructor is impressed by the question because only experienced adventurers know about that. He says that there are some dungeons in the south that have the feature to instantly travel between checkpoints, but there is nothing like that in Lan's dungeon. After that, the instructor leads all the students to the dungeon that is in the middle of the city. He explains that the city was actually built around the dungeon, and every few years, the monster population in the dungeon suddenly increases. And sometimes the monsters reach the surface. He explains that the walls around the dungeon protect the civilians from the monsters, but then assures the newbies that there is no chance of a great monster wave right now. Soon they reach the first floor of the dungeon, which is a safe zone without monsters. The instructor tells everyone that they are free to explore the first floor, but they need to stay close to the entrance. Rio and Ammon team up, and soon Rio senses a monster approaching them. He tells Ammon to strike the monster while he holds it in place, and the boy nervously draws his sword. A few moments later, a monster ant arrives there, and Rio immediately identifies it as a soldier ant from the book he read. He tells Ammon to strike the neck of the monster while he stops it using icicle lances. Rio completely pins the monster to the ground, and Ammon easily cuts off its neck, scoring his first kill. He is overjoyed at this, and Rio extracts the ant's magic stone as a trophy for their first successful monster hunt. Later, they have dinner with their roommates, who want to celebrate their first dungeon trip, and they are quite impressed that they managed to take down a soldier ant. Amon says that he only dealt the finishing blow, and Rio did most of the work by holding the ant down. He then says that he wants to go to the dungeon again tomorrow, but he is worried about going alone. Rio offers to tag along because he also wants to explore the dungeon a bit more, because he is concerned about finding a monster on the first floor, even when the instructor said that there were no monsters there. Ito adds that he has also heard about soldier ants coming to the second and first floor lately, and the boys are confused about the reason. Just then, Abel arrives there and says it is because soldier ants can dig their way up, and the boys freak out on seeing the most famous adventurer in the town up close. Rio, however, is frank as usual with his friend, and then Abel asks the boys to take care of him because he lacks common sense. Mills suddenly stands up in attention and introduces himself to Abel, saying that he is his idol and he wants to become a famous adventurer like him someday. He requests to shake his hand, and Abel obliges, telling him to work hard but make sure that survival is his first priority. Rio then asks Abel what he is doing here so late, and he replies that he just got back from his recent mission. Just then, his party arrives there, and the girls are mad that he came here instead of reporting to the guildmaster. He tells them that he was just guiding some beginners who needed help, but the lowly Lynn tells Shaq's lost son Warren to take him away. The big guy carries Abel on his back as he screams like a baby, and then Lynn starts staring at Rio with jealous eyes. He gets a bit nervous and asks what she wants, but then the priestess Leia tells her to snap out of it, before apologizing to Rio for the disturbance. As they go away, Ito and Neil start fanboying after them, but Rio doesn't understand what they find impressive about that group of buffoons. Meanwhile, Rio tells Lynn that it was not nice of her to stare at Rio, but she replies that she was just curious because Abel keeps on glazing his magic skills. Rio admits that she is curious too, but Abel tells them they will soon see Rio's true skills. The next day, Rio and Amon go to the dungeon again, and this time they face some monster dogs. While Rio holds the dogs down using icicle lances, Ammon proves to be a decent swordsman as well and takes down a couple of them. As they take a break after that, Rio remarks that Ammon's sword fighting style reminds him of Abel, and he explains that his teacher was an old dude named Kiro who learned sword fighting from a big school in the capital. Rio assumes that Abel must have learned from the same school, and he sees potential in Ammon to become quite strong as well. Ammon is impressed by his knowledge of swordplay, even though he is just a mage, and Rio tells him that he practiced with a mentor, but he developed his own sword style. He then remarks that Ammon's style seems to be very exhausting, but it is also very safe, and he just needs to work on his stamina. He tells Ammon that Abel used to practice his form the first thing in the morning during their travels, and that just shows that even the most talented people need to work hard. Ammon feels motivated on hearing that and decides to work hard to become stronger, and Rio is pleased by his response. The next day, Rio visits the library and it is much bigger than his expectations. That's what she said. Anyway, he asks the librarian to show him to the alchemy section and she shows him where books for beginners are kept. However, there are too many options that overwhelm Rio. So, he decides to take a break outside. Suddenly, the city turns dark as a total solar eclipse occurs, and Rio stares at it without eye protection like my uncle, who is now blind. Just 1 second later, he realizes something is odd, and all the people around him have vanished. The atmosphere itself feels different, and then suddenly he feels an attack coming from behind. He is fast enough to react in time, blocking the powerful fire blast using a wall of ice. He wonders who the hell attacked him, and then sees a bad demon mommy coming towards him, walking like she just came out of GTA 4. She is quite amused to see a human in her space and decides to have fun defeating him. Rio realizes that he is facing a demon now, and he is quite sure that she is the strongest being he has ever seen in this world. He wants to run away from her, but he feels that he won't be able to escape this strange space no matter what he tries. So, he decides to fight back. He immediately summons dozens of ice shields right before the demon mommy attacks, blocking her massive firestorm. She abruptly changes her attack, shooting an invisible wind bullet that pierces Rio's shields, but it gets blocked by his armor. The demon can't process how a human armor can block against her attack, but as she looks closely, she finds that Rio is wearing the Fairy King's robe. She realizes that he must be an impressive mage to have such gear and power to block her attacks. So, she decides to cut him down using her sword instead of magic. Rio also draws his ice sword and blocks her attack. He maintains a defensive position as the demon lady keeps pushing him back, but she is much faster than him and he barely dodges a deadly strike to his face. He decides to counterattack by shooting hundreds of icicle lances at her, but the demon swiftly dodges all of them, not noticing that the solar eclipse is ending as she wastes her time playing around. Meanwhile, Rio realizes that she is using wind magic to boost her speed, and then she jumps at him to deal the finishing blow. Rio manages to block it without much difficulty, because even though the demon is fast, her strikes are nothing compared to the headless knight who taught him. The demon, on the other hand, is impressed and asks who the hell is he to have the Fairy King's robe as well as his sword. She creates a fireball to attack him, but Rio cancels it instantly using an icicle lance. This pisses the demon off and she decides to kill him quickly because he can be a danger to her if the fight goes on for longer. She attacks him ruthlessly, but Rio confidently defends against her strikes. He finds a chance to counterattack, and that makes the demon lose her balance. Rio was waiting for this moment, and he launches a barrage of icicle lances at her. The demon creates a wall of fire around her, neutralizing all his attacks. But as their intensity increases, she creates rock walls to protect herself. Rio also changes his attack pattern, using the high-pressure water jets to cut through the wall and injure the demon. She is shocked when his attacks hurt him, but luckily for her, Rio is just attacking blindly because of all the smoke. He then decides to go in for the kill, but she jumps straight towards him to block his attack. As they clash mid-air, Rio notices the demon woman's wounds healing super fast. The moment he gets distracted by that, she sends his crashing into a building, but just as she is about to launch a powerful attack to finish him off, she notices water drops falling from the sky. She is surprised by that, but as a water drop touches her face and scalds her because it was even hotter than the boiling temperature, she screams in pain. She immediately covers herself in a rock ball while waiting for the boiling rain to end, and in the meantime, Rio comes down. Suddenly, the demon woman unleashes powerful flame magic, blowing up everything around her. She walks towards Rio menacingly, but by then, the eclipse is almost over and her sword disintegrates as sunlight touches it. The demoness says that they won't be able to finish their fight this time, and Rio tells her to get lost already. She doesn't really mind him acting like a jerk and introduces herself as Leonor, asking Rio about his name. He tells her his name too, even though he makes it clear that he doesn't want to know anything more about a demon. Leonor is surprised that Rio knows about demons, and she thinks that she should have done all she could to kill him instead of enjoying their fight. She then tells Rio that they will fight again in the future, but it is possible that he runs into another demon before that. She tells him not to get killed by anyone else, because she will be much stronger the next time, and finish him off herself. Rio is shocked to hear that, but then the eclipse ends and everything returns to normal without a trace of the battle that just took place there. Rio feels really odd now and he decides to buy some books and then get some rest. He first heads to the bank to withdraw some money that he got from selling the Wyvern magic stones, and then passes by his dorm room to meet his friends. He notices they are not there. But as he is about to leave the dorm, he finds them being bullied by some other adventurers. Mills and Ito call him a coward for ambushing them when they were injured, but the leader of the bullies, Dan, tells them that they can say the same thing when monsters ambush them in the dungeon and they die. Suddenly, his lackey are knocked out cold because Rio attacked them from behind. And he tells Dan that he was absolutely right, but he should hear his own advice sometimes. He asks him if he is ready to run now that his friends are down, and Dan immediately rushes to punch him. Rio simply steps aside and hits him in the gut with his sword's handle, causing him to throw up this morning's breakfast. He then moves on to heal his friends, telling them that they need more stamina so that no punk ass can catch them off guard the next time. However, before that, he says they should all recover and relax. They hit the public bath, where the priest Ito heals Rio's wound from the wind bullet. Everyone is curious about who could injure Rio when he is so strong, and he decides not to tell them about the demon right now because relaxing comes first. With that, our episode for today concludes. Wait for us in future episodes. We kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all our new content. The episode begins with Ito, Amun, and Niels head back into the dungeon, and after taking out a goblin archer on the 5th floor, Niels suggests they should head home for the day. It hasn't been long since they got here, but goblin archers aren't supposed to show up on the 5th floor, so he has a bad feeling about this. Besides, they've already made more than enough money for today, so he doesn't want to take any unnecessary risks. And it's a good thing they decided to turn back here, because further down the cave there was a monster which would have absolutely destroyed them if they ran into it. Especially since Rio isn't here. Speaking of Rio, he is currently outside the city because his battle against Leonor made him realize how much he needs to improve. In terms of casting speed, they were both evenly matched, but Leonor was able to move a lot faster than him thanks to her wind magic, so he needs to work on his movement speed. However, Rio wasn't able to use wind magic, so he is going to need to come up with an alternative. The best spell he can think of to act as propulsion is his water jet, since he uses it for improved mobility underwater, but he has never used it to move on land before, so he's not sure how to go about it. For starters, he forms some ice on the ground, and then he generates several water jets along his back, but it barely moves his body, so his first test ends in failure. He decides to try it with more water jets next time, but for now, he wants to head back to the library so he can learn more about alchemy and demons. Meanwhile, Lynn is busy searching through all the spell books she can find, because she's looking for anything similar to that giant ice cube spell Abel said he saw Rio use, but even the forbidden spellbooks don't mention it. If Rio actually pulled it off, then it would have to have been an original spell. But a spell like that would require an incredible amount of mana, so she still finds it hard to believe that Rio was able to do it so casually. Just as she is putting the book back, the elf girl from earlier, Sarah, walks in, and she seems to be good friends with Lynn, so she asks what she's doing here. Lynn explains that she was just trying to locate a spell in one of the spell books, but she couldn't find what she was looking for. Sarah says she's sorry to hear that and she'd love to help Lynn search, but she just got back from a mission to the royal capital and she's late for an important meeting. Back at the guild, the boys head over to the front desk to give Mina a report on their dungeon exploration today. Nina is surprised to see them back so soon since they usually spend a lot more time in the dungeon, but Ito tells her there's actually a reason they came back early. He shows her the magic stone they got, and after inspecting it, Nal confirms that it really does belong to a goblin archer. A goblin archer showing up on the 5th floor is practically unheard of. So she rushes off to inform the guildmaster, but before she goes, she thanks the boys for the valuable intel. Once the guildmaster hears the news, he is just as shocked as Nena was, because goblin archers aren't meant to show up until the 10th floor, so encountering one on the 5th floor means something is terribly wrong. The guildmaster asks Nina how many high-ranking parties are still in Lawn at the moment, and right now the only ones available are Abel's party, Crimson Sword, and a White Brigade party, so the guildmaster asks Senna to call them here so he can deliver the news in person. A little while later, Abel and the others arrive at the guild in response to the guildmaster's summons, but Abel isn't exactly thrilled because he heard White Brigade is going to be here as well, and he hates having to talk to their leader. Once they arrive, Abel sees the leader of White Brigade, Phelps, already seated, so he gives him a shallow greeting. And now that everyone is here, the guildmaster informs them that he called them here because he'd like them to investigate the recent strange occurrence in the dungeon. Just recently, a group of new adventurers claimed to have run into a goblin archer on the 5th floor. Abel asks him if he is certain that a goblin archer really appeared so high up, and the guildmaster says he has already been given irrefutable proof, so the intel is correct. That's why he wants to hire both parties to go investigate the dungeon in order to check for signs of the Great Tidal Boar. It has been 10 years since the last one, so there's a good chance that another tidal war is going to happen soon, and they need to be prepared. Both parties will be paid 100 gold up front and 200 upon their return, but the goal of this mission is simply to investigate, not to fight. So if they find evidence of the tidal boar, they are to return to the surface immediately and inform him. From there, the guildmaster will close the double walls around the dungeon until he gets back up from the regional nights. The guildmaster has already gotten permission from the local lord for it, but he still needs to inspect the dungeon to take any action, so he asks them if they are willing to take the job. Both Abel and Phelps agree on behalf of their parties. So, the investigation is set for tomorrow morning. The next day, Rio wakes up early because he plans to go to the city's northern library to learn more about alchemy. Ito tells him the northern library is only accessible to people who are D rank and above, but that won't be a problem for Rio. Although Amon remembers hearing rumors that the forbidden texts in that library are only accessible to B rank or higher, so Rio won't be able to get his hands on those. A little while later, Rio arrives at the northern library, and the book selection here is even larger than that of the southern library. This place is so big that he's probably going to need help finding the books he's after. But people would probably look at him weird if he started talking about demons all of a sudden. But just as Rio is climbing a set of stairs, he happens to run into Sarah, and they're both surprised to see each other here. Meanwhile, over by the dungeon, the members of Crimson Sword and White Brigade have both gathered outside the gates to prepare for the investigation. But just as the guildmaster is about to open it, Abel stops him because he has a bad feeling about this. He asks Lynn to use wind magic to skin the first layer of the dungeon before they go in, and when she does, she finds over 100 monsters posted up right at the entrance, meaning the tidal bore has already begun. The guildmaster declares a state of emergency and issues a request for all available adventurers to head to the dungeon and prepare for battle, because they are going to need all the help they can get. Meanwhile, back at the library, Sarah introduces herself to Rio, and she is delighted that she actually got to meet him again. She asks Rio what brings him to the library today, and he is about to tell her he wants to research demons, but he realizes that would sound odd, so instead, he says he wants to learn about alchemy. Sir is intrigued since alchemy is a difficult subject, so Rio tells her his goal is to build a golem one day, although he's not in much of a rush to do so. Building a golem is quite the feat, and unfortunately, as far as Sarah knows, there aren't any books on golem craft here, but she does know where Rio can find some books to get started on his alchemy journey. She even offers to show him around, since she knows her way around this library pretty well. Along the way, Sarah asked Rio if he enjoys reading books, and he says he loves them, but he hasn't been around books in ages, so he hasn't had many opportunities to read. Sarah laughs a little, because the way Rio said that makes it sound like it has been decades since he last saw a book, which is kind of true, but he doesn't want to explain all that. So he changes the subject and starts talking about how he thinks it's cool that Sarah is an elf. Sarah admits that it's rare to find an elf living in human settlements, so she may be considered a bit strange, but if nothing else, staying in the city led her to meet Rio, so she wouldn't change a thing. While Rio and Sarah continue their leisurely stroll through the library, all the gates to the dungeon are locked down, and every available adventurer has been stationed on the walls in anticipation of the incoming threat. Before long, the main dungeon gates burst open, and hundreds of goblins come pouring out. So, the adventurers begin their attack and fire hundreds of arrows, while the mages cast as many fireballs as they can. This is going to be a battle of attrition, so whenever someone gets injured, they are rotated out of the formation so they can be healed to continue the fight. But with so many goblins here, the guildmaster is starting to get worried that they may not be able to hold them off. Phelps tells all of his party members to make sure they conserve their energy, and Abel reminds Lynn not to use too much magic, because they can't risk her running out of mana early on. Unfortunately, they are running low on arrows, so Abel doesn't know how much longer they can hold out. A few moments later, Niels and a few other Frank adventurers arrive, and they've brought every arrow they could get their hands on, so they should be able to hold off the goblins now. But that aside, Niels has a message for Abel from the guildmaster, so he tells him that once the smaller goblins are taken care of, Crimson Sword and White Brigade are going to have to face the boss once it shows up. A few hours later, pretty much all of the regular goblins have been dealt with, and the boss should be showing up soon. So the guildmaster gives the signal for Crimson Sword and White Brigade to move forward and attack. They all jump off the wall, and Lynn uses her magic to make sure they land safely. But there are still a few goblins down here, so Abel and Phelps rush ahead to finish them off. They then turn their attention to the large goblin general that just emerged from the dungeon. But to their surprise, it's not just one, it's 3 separate goblin generals. This is bad news, since having 3 generals means that there must be a goblin king nearby. So they need to finish this quickly. Abel tells everyone that he and Phelps will handle 1 general each, while Rhea and Sheena can go after the last one. And now that everyone is clear on the plan, they all spring into action. Abel evades one of the goblins, strikes, and manages to cut its arm off. So it shouldn't be too hard to take the goblin generals down, but just then he notices something off inside the dungeon. So he yells for everyone to get down immediately. In the next moment, a wind slash is sent straight at them, slicing all the goblin generals in half. But luckily, everyone else managed to duck in time to avoid getting bisected. The one responsible for the air slash was the Goblin King, and it clearly won't be as easy to defeat as the others. So Abel and Phelps rush in to try and catch it off guard. However, when Phelps tries to pierce it with his spear, it bounces right off the Goblin King's armor. Phelps is forced to pull back since he can't do any damage to it, but Abel isn't slowing down at all. He charges straight at the Goblin King and uses his perfect shadow technique to evade its attack before piercing his chest. That wasn't enough to kill the Goblin King, but Abel never expected to finish it off on his own. He then calls out to Lynn, who has been charging up a wind bullet spell this entire time, and once he's out of the way, she Swiss cheeses the Goblin King, officially putting an end to the crisis. This was the end of episode 5. Subscribe to not miss the next. Our episode begins with a grand celebration, Everyone is celebrating, everyone is very happy, everyone is drinking juice. Rio enters, surprised, and says, "What is happening here?" It's a very strange situation, but he still can't figure out what's going on. The scene then shifts to that official, who says, "Unfortunately, I wish I could celebrate with someone, but I have reports for the capital and the regional lord, funding requests to deal with the great material abundance, compensation papers, evaluations of the participating adventurers, plans for repairing and compensating facilities and properties, in addition to the necessary budget for all of this. My hands are not just busy, they are drowning in work. And on top of all that, researchers will be coming from the royal capital to study what happened here for sure. And although the Demas is closed for a whole month, we then return once again to the grand celebration. We see that group and they are very happy as their friend explains to them why they are celebrating. Yes, they are celebrating the end of the great material abundance. His friend told him, "You should have seen Abel, he was so strong. He stabbed the Goblin King with his sword like this." Then he signaled to Lin to cast a crazy spell. It was the Rain of Shots, said to be one of the most powerful wind spells. Abel was the only one who dodged it, but we don't know how he did it alone. At that moment, the legend they are talking about, Mr. Abel, arrives. He told them, "It's the complete shadow sword skill. It's a technique to dodge any long-range attack, including magic." They rejoice and welcome him, and he tells them that they also did very well. At that moment, the rest of the group arrives. They were looking for him everywhere. One of them asks him, "Can you really create a wall of ice in the air?" He tells her that he can do it. "I think my maximum limit is about 40 meters, but it's not as easy as you might think. It takes a long time to master." She told him, "You are so great because most people can't do that at all. I think you are very skilled and can use original spells," he told her. "Yes, because my spell chants are based on personal preference and each person has their own style. And now let's go get some food before it runs out while we're talking." In the morning, we see them at the guild looking for a quest, but unfortunately, they don't find any. At that moment, Rio comes to them and says, "Aren't you three supposed to be working?" One of them replies, "Impossible. With the Demas closed, we thought about taking on gathering quests above ground, but there has been such a large influx in the last few days that buyers have started to withdraw their usual requests. What about you, Rio? Did you come to take a quest?" He tells them, "No, I'm looking for some maids to practice alchemy, but it seems they've all been sold out." One of them says to him, "You mean like magical copper ore? It's very expensive." Rio tells them, "From what I heard from the general store, a handful of it costs about 500,000 florins, which is equivalent to 50 gold coins." They tell him, "Forget about that and tell us how to get a job." He tells them, "Yes, I will hire you. If you can find a place where magical copper ore can be gathered outside the Demas, I would be grateful." They look at each other and say, "We agree." The scene then shifts after they leave, searching for a nearby mine. There is an abandoned mine near the village of Rosie, which is a day's walk from here. He tells them that he will hire them, and each one of them will get 4 gold coins. They are surprised because the salary is astonishing, something beyond imagination. He told them, "I will pay you that even if you don't find anything. Then I will buy what you find of the magical copper ore for 25 gold coins per piece. My only condition is that the 3 of you return safely. What do you think of this offer?" They told him, "We agree, but are you sure you're paying that much?" He told them, "Yes, and more than that. And since this is outside the guild's framework, it won't count towards your progress." They are very happy and agree. After that, we see Rio, and he hears the sound of a big fight. He looks out the window and sees a group of young men holding a woman and wanting to rape her that night, but someone wants to defend her. Then these troublemakers draw their swords, point them in his face, and say, "I won't kill you, but you need to learn some manners. Leave the girl to us. We will rape her and then return her." At that moment, the troublemaker falls to the ground and cannot get up. He asks him, "What did you do to him?" The other tells him that he didn't do anything. The knight tries to get up but falls to the ground several times. He then asks Dan if he used magic or did anything to him. Dan replies that he didn't do anything to him, that he fell on his own. The knight gets up and tries to attack Dan and the girl. At that moment, Philip appears and shouts at them, asking them what they are doing and how they can be knights of this kingdom. He yells at the adventurer and tells him that he will banish him and the guild leader from the guild. Philip silences him and tells him that if he is a knight, he should act like one. He may be just an adventurer, but he is also a nobleman of this kingdom. He is Philip, the heir to the Heinlein family. When the knights hear his name, they are shocked because it is the same as the name of the former captain of the Royal Knights. Philip tells them that Alexis Heinlein is his father. He then orders them to stop tarnishing the name of their kingdom's knights and to leave immediately. All the knights run away. Dan and his friend thank him for what he did for them. Philip asks them to come with him and for Dan to take his friend to her companions so that nothing happens to her. After that, Philip looks at Rio's window, finds him and greets him. He then tells him that he is the captain of the White Brigade and that Abel has told him a lot about him, but his magic is really interesting. He then tells him that Abel was insistent that they would have won against the great material abundance much more easily with his help. At that moment, Philip's assistant arrives and tells him that they must go immediately. Philip excuses himself and tells him that they will talk later. Then they go on their way. Rio watches them for a moment. He knows that they are very strong, but he wasn't sure why a Marquis' son was working as an adventurer at night. Rio sits down to eat dinner. Abel comes to him at that moment and tells him that he doesn't usually see him eating dinner alone. Rio replies that he won't invite him to dinner even if he sits next to him, and that he can invite him to dinner whenever he wants as a veteran. He then tells him that it is rare to see him here alone as well, but he remembers that he is going to the pleasure district after dinner. Abel asks him to be quiet as he doesn't want anyone to know anything about that. Rio replies that he understands that he prefers to avoid talking about that subject, and that this makes him think that some lucky person has bewitched him. Abel replies that that's not the case. Rio interrupts him and tells him that he knows he is trying to get close to Lin. Abel replies that Lin has a crush on their friend Bowen. Rio is surprised and then tells him that he thinks that love can overcome even a small difference in height. He then asks him if he has a crush on Rio or not. Abel replies angrily and tells him that that's not the case, then asks him to forget about it. Rio asks him why he is here alone. Abel tells him that he wants his help if he's not doing anything here. He then takes him with him to the district and tells him that one of the investigators who was sent to Laon is an old acquaintance of his and has royal knights as guards, but it seems that some of them are corrupt, and it seems that he went out for a walk alone tonight and he has to bring him back before he causes trouble. Rio stands up and notices some masked adventurers talking about the town and its demons. He asks Abel to watch them with him. Then they go to them to lure them out and they actually beat them up. They then find this alchemical tool with them. Rio asks him to take it, but Abel refuses. Abel then opens it and finds that these men are C-rank adventurers from Gilclear. Abel says to Rio they are C-rank adventurers from Gilclear. It's the capital of Handelo, but what are they doing here? We'll hand them over to the city guards, they can look into it. Rio tells him that he is doing a very rare good deed for him. Abel replies that he always does good deeds and that he doesn't know if gossiping about him is considered a good deed. After that, the scene shifts to Philip, who is walking in the streets. There are soldiers behind him who want to kill him, but something strange happens to them and they can't move or even speak. Then we see Sheena using her hellfire power and burning them. Philip thanks her for what she did. The next day at the guild, McLiss speaks angrily to those people, saying, "You seized the guild's food stores as soon as you arrived. You reopened the demands, starting today just for your investigations, and you're demanding adventurers for protection." Clive tells him, "His Majesty the King has appointed Count Harold as Minister of Internal Affairs and head of this research mission. He in turn has granted us full authority over the team, and we are on site. This is stated in the decree you read. I will explain to you the meaning of full authority." The old man interrupts them and apologizes to Hugh regarding the food. "I will arrange to bring supplies from neighboring towns in the future." Clive tells him, "We may have settled the supply issue, but I'm afraid I cannot go back on the decision to reopen the Demas." McLess agrees to let them open the Demas, but if anything happens, neither Laon, the adventurers, nor the Adventurers Guild will bear any responsibility. If that doesn't suit you, the Demas will remain closed. Then the old man says to Clive, "This is what we have. I don't think hiring adventurers for a higher than usual fee will be a problem." The young man replies, "That depends on the adventurers, but I must warn you, there are almost no records of the Demos condition after the Great Material Abundance. I urge you to exercise the utmost caution." The scene then shifts to Rio. He says, "This is Abel's squad's residence. I bet the cafeteria is here." Then, this girl comes out, very scared, and asks Rio if he is an adventurer because she wants to go to the Adventurers Guild with a message that she must deliver immediately. Rio agrees to help her. They then go to Abel. The girl says, "I'm from Hilarion in the capital. I'm glad I was able to deliver it. Someone at your inn told me I would find you here." Abel reads the message saying, "It simply asks us to support the royal mages in their investigation inside the Demas. I'm sure the high-ranking officials they sent are up to something." Abel explains to them the reason the Demas is closed after a disaster is that decades ago a rank A party never returned from it. And they weren't just any rank A party. Their leader was said to be a powerhouse, almost rank S. Yet the party did not survive. In other words, no one knows what happens in the Demas after the Great Material Abundance. Rio tells her that the smart choice is to stay away from it. Then this child thanks him for helping him and getting him to the Adventurers Guild. Lynn asks this child, whose name is Natalie, "Have you ever heard of a spell that creates a wall of ice far from the caster? This wall is high in the sky." She tells her that she has never heard of such magic before and is amazed that such magic actually exists. Lynn tells them that Rio, who was here a moment ago, is good at using this. The girl is shocked by this and says that it's impossible. Then Abel explains to them, "None of you should ever fight Rio. I feel that even the four of us together cannot match him. If you ever find yourselves facing him, surrender immediately. From what I know of him, he won't kill you. This is an order from me as the squad leader. And if you need help, Natalie, and you can't find any of us, go to Rio. You'll likely find him in room 10 of the Adventurers Inn or the library." The scene then shifts to the adventurers entering the Demas. We see the old man in charge of the Demas telling them that this is a magical energy residue detector. As the name suggests, it picks up any trace of remaining magical energy in the vicinity, and what it detects will be sent to the analysis team in the tent. Abel stands with him, very obsessed with this amazing magical tool. He says that they will only reach the 3rd level today and will move slowly and carefully. In the evening, we see Rio giving his friends who went to collect the stones he wanted 900,000 florins. They are very surprised that he gave them this large amount. He tells them, "You found 2 pieces of the ore I need, and I'll add the rest to cover your costs." They thank him very much for what he has given them. He tells them that there is a meeting about the situation in the Dimes tomorrow, so they all have to attend. After that, to the Dimes, we see Abel with his squad. They have spent 3 days and descended 7 levels without finding anything. The old man in charge of the Dimes tells them that the surface team is reviewing their readings and has found nothing significant. They then try to go down further and further. The next morning, there's a report on the situation in the Dimes at the Adventurers Guild. The guild official says that the Rank H and Rank W parties will not accompany the investigation teams. As for alternative work, since they are getting food from other cities, those who do that will need protection. The White Brigade will participate, but they need more at any time and would be grateful for all volunteers. Rio asks a question, saying, "I heard that magic stones were obtained from the abundance monsters. I'm curious about their color grade." The guild official tells him that all the magic stones they got from the material abundance were dull. The scene then shifts to Clive and those with him. They are amazed when they find another gate that seems to lead to another world. He asks those with him to prepare the equipment and start the analysis as quickly as possible. Suddenly, as they begin this analysis, they all disappear and the device cannot record any readings. What is the secret of this gate, and what is this other world? This is what we will find out in the next episode, so stay tuned. But we ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all that is new. Later, Rio's roommates tell him that there is a monster hunting job in Niels' village, Kadi, but it is for D-ranked adventurers and they are only E-rank. Niels really wants to help them, so he asks Rio to quickly form a party and take the quest. Once Rio learns that he will have to defeat some skeletons, his eyes light up and he agrees to the mission. Later, they discuss this with Hugh, who reveals that this job was already assigned to a D-ranked party, but they failed to complete it. When Rio asks how that's possible, Hugh discloses that it was actually the villagers who failed to cooperate with the party and turned against them. Niels is confused because his people weren't like this before, so Hugh allows them to take the job and find out for themselves. He tells Rio to take care of these fools, and Rio promises that he'll be vigilant. With that, the party heads out and arrives at the village after hours of traveling. When they reach way before the expected time, they realize that their recent stamina training has paid off. When some locals recognize Niels, Rio jokes that he expected everyone to just ignore him, but he is less of a loser here than he is in Lawn. Later, Mills introduces his friends to a man named Bulan, who is the mayor of the village. Over lunch, Mills asks him why the villagers are troubling adventurers. And Bulan says it's because those adventurers spilled blood in the eastern forest, which is a place they were told to avoid by their ancestors. Niels' mood suddenly shifts, and he tells his friends that he cannot tell them anything before he seeks approval from the council. At night, they stay at Niels' place, where his younger brother Nilo tells them that Niels set his eyes on becoming an adventurer at a very young age. However, when their parents decided to go on vacation with the Attack on Titan cast, he stayed back to raise them. Nilo further tells them that the previous party ignored the villagers' warnings about the eastern forest, but as long as they follow the rules, no one will trouble them. Soon after, Niels returns and tells them he got the council's approval to hunt the goblins and skeletons. He also got permission to share the village secrets with them, but he asks them to keep them to themselves. He first tells them about their sacred guardian beast that lives in the woods, which excites Rio. The second thing is a shrine, but the elder wanted to tell them about it herself later. The next day, Bulan takes them to the outskirts of the forest where he first spotted the goblins and asks Rio to be mindful of their customs. While they investigate the footprints, Rio senses several goblins heading their way and warns the other. Niels suggests they take out all but one so they can follow it back to its den. Soon after, the goblins appear and Rio freezes most of them, allowing his friends to take them out. The last guy runs back to his den, so they give chase and defeat every goblin outside. Just then, a giant goblin general shows up. And while Niels and Ammon are terrified to fight it, Rio makes ice chains to pin it to the ground. This allows Niels to finish it off and they later celebrate with its magic stone. Once they return to the village, Bulan introduces them to the village advisor, Nasu. She then takes them to see the guardian, and on the way, Ito notices the crest of Earth Mother Goddess on her staff. He explains that the said goddess was part of the 7 pantheon. But things changed over time, and people only worship the light goddess, while the other 6 gods have been forgotten. Nasu, however, is a strong believer and still worships the goddess of Earth Mother. She also reveals that while the followers of light recite incantations to heal, the believers of Earth Mother never needed incantations to cast any spell. Soon after they reach a cave where Nasu calls upon the Guardian, who turns out to be a peaceful Fenrir. He introduces himself as Enkusen to Rio, which shocks Nasu because even she didn't know his name. When Enkusen says he's related to fairies, Rio realizes he must possess a secret trait that makes him eye candy for them. Enkusen then thanks Nasu for bringing such a wonderful guest to him, and everyone is surprised as to why he's grown a liking towards Rio. Enkusen then tells them that there are nearly 30 skeletons in front of the shrine, and he's locked one of them up inside using his own powers. Since that one is super strong, he wants Rio and the others to slay the others before fighting the final boss. Once inside, Ito uses his holy magic to purify the lower skeletons, so they move on to the bigger one, which happens to be an Arch Sackleton. Once it steps out of the door, Rio creates a carpet of super slippery ice, which makes it fall over and over again. After some heavy strikes, Amund and Niels manage to slay the beast and tell Nasu and Bulan to enter the shrine. Inside, Nasu says she learned from their priestess about a shining jewel in the shrine, which eventually became dark and shattered altogether. She believes this jewel was acting as a power source for the cave. So she decides to use a sealing magic to ensure no more goblins and skeletons spawn. After completing the mission, the boys are on their way back when they discuss that they will have to move out of the dorms soon. Niels asks the others if they would like to join, and they all agree, except Rio, who wants to think about it first. Meanwhile, Hugh asks Abel if he would like to attend the Whitnash Open Port Festival on his behalf as his proxy, and he hesitantly agrees. Elsewhere, the infamous Inferno magician is training troops when a red-hilled baddie arrives and informs them she is heading out for the festival. That is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the next. The episode begins with Rio is on an escort mission with the boys, and he learns that he's decided to name their party Room 10. Despite having a cringe name, the boys are looking forward to their first mission, but Rio mentions how they will have to stay at Whitnash for 9 days. Niels explains it's because of the Whitnash's Open Port Festival, which happens every 5 years, and this gets Rio excited. Soon after they arrive at the port, and Niels asks the boys to check out the food stalls with him. The next day, the infamous Inferno magician arrives with the royal family, and he is already on guard for any trouble. While the boys enjoy their food, Prince Conrad and Princess Fiona from the Duty Empire arrive and attend a ball for nobles. However, Fiona seems to be tired, so Conrad asks him to rest up. As she hits the bed, her assistant, Marie, is there to ensure she does not forget her decorum. Fiona is exhausted because she doesn't do well in social gatherings, much like y'all losers, and believes she deserves a place in the commander's office. She also doesn't understand how her brother does it, even though he's only 3 years older than her. Marie assures her that she's got her own talent, and Fiona seconds that her abilities lie with the sword. Later, Rio and the boys see Abel in the special guest section, and Fiona sitting beside him. Soon after, Abel's party members arrive and reveal that Abel was asked to attend the festival in Hugh's place, which is why he's up there. Ren then notices a thick wind magic shield protecting the important guests and reveals that the Whitnash family has a secret treasure that's capable of airbending, even though it is not very mana efficient. Leia believes they've taken extra safety measures to ensure nothing bad happens here. Ren also mentions that Fiona is a commander in the Imperial Magic Division, which means her lieutenant must also be here. The man she is talking about is the infamous Inferno magician Baron, and hearing this excites Rio. Liua reveals the man is believed to have incinerated 1,000 royal troops with a single attack, along with slaying wyverns and destroying a whole rebel town alone. Even though they can't confirm these stories, she advises them to be on his good side. Abel's party then decides to leave, and soon after, Rio runs into the Inferno magician by almost stepping on his foot. After saying sorry, they head in different directions, and he meets his friend Jurjan to buy snacks for the princess. Meanwhile, Abel meets up with Prince Conrad. As the two get to talking, Abel says he saw Fiona in the seats, which means Baron will also be here. Abel tries to learn more about it, but Conrad says he can't discuss private matters and leaves. Later, Baron and Jurjan return with the snacks and discuss how they almost bumped into a boy, but he was quick to avoid them. He is talking about Rio, noting that he may dress like a magician, but he's definitely quick with his feet. Later, as Niels and the others partake in an archery game, Abel sees them miss and starts laughing. Rio urges him to try it as well, and even though he is a swordsman, he manages to land the bullseye. As he steps down, his party members spawn out of nowhere, and he notices Leia talking to him in a passive-aggressive manner. Ren whispers to Rio and Ammon that Abel forgot he had promised to go out with Liaya today, which is why she's angry. She then drags him away, and Abel promises to catch up with the boys later. Meanwhile, back in Lon, Sir enters the guild and asks Nena about Rio's whereabouts. When she learns he's on a mission, she decides to come tomorrow. However, Nena tells her he'll be gone for a while, which makes her incredibly sad. In Whitish, Rio and Ito watch Niels and the bully Dan argue during a boat race. That's when Rio spots a girl named Sasha, a priest like Ito, and she seems to have joined Dan's party. As the race begins, Fiona asks Marie why the adventurers have a different category of race, only to learn that they can attack each other during the race. She then asks Baron if they can have crepes at the training ground, but he strictly refuses, as that place is for learning to fight, not to speedrun obesity. As the race begins, Mills and Dan start fighting each other, and they are so engrossed in their own issues that they get last place. Despite that, they get a trophy for entertaining the crowd, but they fight over who gets to keep it. Soon after, the boys see a boat with no sails, and Hugh, who has just arrived, explains that it uses magic and alchemy to operate. Later, they visit a weapons shop to buy a crossbow for, because he wants to support Niels and Amin from a distance. After buying the one he likes, the squad heads out to enjoy food. On the other hand, Hugh returns to Lon to attend to a certain matter, leaving Abel as his substitute again. Abel feels uneasy because he doesn't have a sword on him, but he believes he doesn't need it because there is a barrier in place. Right then, the treasure that holds the barrier malfunctions, and the venue is attacked by a mysterious group. That is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the next